Welcome to Season 2 of The Nerd Review. This is a show where we talk about movies, TV shows, video games, books, and comic books. Today you're listening to Season 2, Episode 3, The Nerd Review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This is Ant-Man 3, starring Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, and just so many amazing actors in this movie. Bill Murray was so fun to have as Lord Kylar, and Jonathan Majors coming back as Kang the Conqueror. If you've seen Loki, the Disney Plus series, you're familiar with his character. I'm going to try to avoid too many spoilers, but this is a review of a new movie, so I'm just going to say like spoilers, warning across the bow. You know, there could be spoilers. I'll try to preempt it with, like spoiler coming up, so if you want to just skip ahead, I'll warn you as much as I can. But let's jump into Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Ant-Man 3. So I'm a veteran of all things Marvel and Marvel movies. I grew up with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies and the Hugh Jackman X-Men movies, and Ben Affleck as Daredevil and the Elektra movies, sorry, and all of these Marvel movies that predate Disney or predate the MCU. That was some great movies and some not so great movies. I'm looking at you, Daredevil, and your weird karate dance montage in the park, but we've come a long way since then. And so if you're looking for like a super critical analysis of whether this is a good movie or not, this is definitely not the review for you. I am a huge Marvel fan. I'm a huge MCU fan. I have seen every MCU movie in theater since the first Iron Man. So this is just a recap, really, and what I liked and what my thoughts are, and how I interpret these new characters and these new things that they've introduced in this movie and where they're taking the story at this point. So I like the movie. I enjoyed the movie. It was interesting. The quips were good, though I definitely missed Michael Pena and Randall Park. The small cameo at the beginning was great, but as a huge fan of Michael Randall Park, I got their names mixed up. As a huge fan of Randall Park, and Michael Pena, I missed both of them in this movie. The comedy was definitely not as great as the first two, but alas, they had a story in mind, and it didn't really leave room for all these extra characters. And the director, Peyton Reed, he said as much during the interviews. Michael Pena's character Luis, and Randall Park, the agent, he was even in the Wanda TV series, so that was he's getting his screen time just in other places, and he's still being utilized in the MCU, but they just didn't have the time, and the scope of this movie was already so big and going down into the quantum realm, which we'll get into in a minute. But they just they weren't part of this field trip. That was basically it, and it was a super interesting field trip at that, with an amazing roster of new characters. My favorite, hands down, was Veb, who's actually voiced by David Dastmalchian, who was Kurt in Ant-Man 1 and 2, and is super familiar with superhero movies. He was in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. I believe he was in The Dark Knight. He's been in the Flash TV series on the CW. He was Abracadabra, so he's been Metahumans. He was in the most recent iteration of Suicide Squad, so he's been on DC side of things. He's been on the MCU side of things. Amazing actor, and now he's the voice actor, the voice for hands down my favorite character of the movie, Veb, the no holes liquid translator type. I don't know if he's a single entity that provides this, but it was very interesting. I would love them to expand on that. They really need to make a series of these weird, strange characters that are just so damn funny and somehow adorable, like Korg from Thor. Disney, seriously, they should just make a series about these weird dudes. I would totally watch that. Okay, so let's jump into the movie breakdown, and spoilers from here on in. If you haven't seen Ant-Man 3, go see it, come back, finish listening to this, because spoilers from here on in. So I hope you've seen the movie. So the movie picks up after the events of Endgame, and I'm not sure how much else has happened. They don't really go into that much, though apparently through some research there is a scene in Wakanda Forever. If you've seen that, you see on one of the newscasts at the bottom of the news crawl that Scott's book is being promoted in this movie. He's written a book about his experiences with the Avengers, and he's going around reading from the book and doing these book signings and stuff. So So arguably it's happening around the same time as those events, and the movies have been progressing forward. And it gets a bit complicated when we get down into the quantum realm, but we'll get into that. So at this point, post-blip, we know that people have lost their homes. There's this big, unrest happening from the whole population of the world coming back. And we know, grown-up Cassie, who's now being played by Catherine Newton, who, if you're a fan of the Supernatural series, she portrayed Claire Novak, who was, this is a bit tangent, but if you're a fan of Supernatural, there was the angel Castiel, and he possessed this human Jimmy, and Jimmy had a daughter, and that was Claire Novak, who was also portrayed by a much younger Catherine Newton. So Supernatural was an amazing series, but I digress. So it's great. It's great to see her in this. I really enjoyed her in Supernatural, and there was some rumors and a backdoor pilot of her getting a spin-off in the Supernatural universe that would have been starring her, and unfortunately that fell through and the CW didn't pick it up. So it's cool to see her getting this role in the MCU, and it'd be nice to see her in future Ant-Man movies. But so yes, the post-blip world seems pretty messed up. People are getting displaced, and all the stuff that we've seen already in the Disney Plus series adds to this, and it's a growing unrest, and I'm interested to see how that will play out. And so Cassie now, she's not happy with just sitting around and letting homeless people get pushed around and get pushed out of parks, and this leads to her being arrested, like father like daughter. That's how the first Ant-Man started, right? Scott was getting released from jail, and then he was on probation during Ant-Man 2 because of everything that happens in Civil War. And it is amazing how intricate and interrelated these movies have become. It's one of the things as a MCU fan since the original Iron Man that just there's so much good interwoven stories. It feels like a series, not just a series of movies, but like a TV series. That's what you get invested for characters and character arcs. And you can say it's not great movies or they're not the pinnacle of cinema, but I've been watching these movies since 2008, and I was 14, and I'm almost 30, and I still, I remember all this minor details, and it's a lot of fan service, so I really enjoy that. So getting back to it, she was not happy. She's trying to make a difference, and we find pretty quickly that after this jail stint and stuff that she's been getting help from Hope and Hank, and they've been working on ways to map the quantum realm. And this is to the chagrin of Janet. You can see she's a bit upset. Michelle Pfeiffer's character, she having just spent 30 years in the quantum realm. She doesn't really want to revisit it or talk about it. So they've been working on this in secret, and Hank says that Cassie has built a subatomic Hubble telescope, which actually sounds awesome. That's just the tip of the awesome iceberg. If you could so much of this sci-fi, Marvel science, a lot of it's freaking awesome. That's probably the appeal and why so many people like it, and why it's been written into comic books and media for so long. It's because it sounds so appealing when you word it like that. A microscope is cool, and being able to see particles and cells and all that's cool. And then you combine all of these fancy cool words and you come up with something like a subatomic Hubble telescope, and it sounds so evocative. It's attractive. That's what you want to hear when you're a nerd, and you're oh yeah, that'd be cool. Can you imagine that? And it's all just so the lighter fluid for your imagination, and it's nice. It's just I love it. Honestly, I just love it. So let's continue. So they turn it on, and they explain that it's basically like a sonar mapping system. They send a signal down, and it gathers data, comes back up, and they can build a 3D model from this information. And right away, Janet is no, we have to turn it off, shut it down, blah, blah, blah. And that's because they get sucked in. They turn it off, she rips the plug out, and 2 seconds later it powers itself back on, and there's blue goo comes up from the middle and sucks everybody in. and it's this cool, trippy. You've seen it in Doctor Strange, you've seen it, in the Multiverse of Madness, and if you've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, it was very similar. Or Ant-Man 1 or 2, we've seen it before. It's the montage of going through all the universes and getting smaller and things crashing all around you. And the group gets separated, so we have like a plot A, plot B thing going on right away. And so now we're on a tour of the quantum realm where everyone can survive without helmets or special suits, because reasons. I remember at some point them saying like if you didn't have the helmet or whatnot, you wouldn't be able to survive. And according to, they've just thrown that out the window. And according to Janet, they can never see this hidden universe because they couldn't see past the Subatomica, which is actually the name of the universe in the Marvel comics. So this is the microverse, and it's called Subatomica, made up of 5 planets: Tran, Merwood, Tok, Bizk, and Kor. Pretty sure I'm pronouncing those right. These are all just like made up sounds. So the introduction and tour of this new dimension is really cool, and it has a lot of potential for future movies and Disney Plus series. Like seriously, a Web series would be amazing. Now down in the microverse, or the Subatomica, which wasn't actually said in the movie at all, it's just the quantum realm now. So that's what they've called it. And there are a handful of different races, and it said that they are from worlds already destroyed. So I assume that there are more than 5 planets in the MCU version of this realm. Like it's supposed to be like a quantum universe, not just a quantum like galaxy of 5 planets, if you will. When Scott and Cassie finally crash land and they stop like cascading through all the different smaller and smaller universes, I have to say it gave me Strange World vibes. It's a Disney movie that just came out recently. Again, this is going to be spoilers if you haven't seen that movie, but just skip over this. But the concept of that world seemed very similar to what we were seeing here in Ant-Man, the way that it was kind of like this big amoeba creature, like this big cell that was attacking them, right? It's supposed to be like microscopic bacteria or something in that sense. And I just got a really Strange World vibe. So I'll try not to spoil that movie if you haven't seen it. That's one thing that I really don't enjoy, is that when I'm listening or taking in one form of media and then all of a sudden they just throw in like a huge spoiler for something else, because like why would you do that? I was watching that too. Why would you spoil it? So I'm not gonna do that. No spoilers. It felt very similar. That was the vibe I was getting. So yeah, there are plenty of these weird CG creatures mucking about and doing their things, and Scott gets attacked a couple times before having to run for their life, because these things are like huge even though they're microscopic, which I found that the playing of that really fun. Like you could be big but also small at the same time. So the group is split up from the get-go. So like goal one is to find the rest of the family peeps, and that means different plot lines for each group, because obviously they won't be going about finding each other the same way. So Scott and Cassie fumble around and fight off some of these weird giant micro creature things until they're captured. They're sort of captured. It's more like intercepted by the freedom fighters, all of whom have different abilities. Like the flashlight-headed guy, he can laser blast people, like the big metal dude from the first Thor movie, the Guardian or something, except his head looks like a cylinder of glass with this cool like red glow spiral, and it was some damn cool CGI. Like these folk, this had some cool background. It was much better than some of the CGI backgrounds, that's for sure. Definitely starting to notice the VFX seams and how overworked the industry is right now. Some of the scenes felt like mid-2000s, with some of the actors just standing in front of green screens. Like the depths were off. And I'm not ragging on the VFX teams at all. Like, don't get me wrong. The issue is over the overworked, crazy schedules and the insane turnaround times. And like these individuals are amazing artists, and they're doing so much work. And like before Disney Plus and all these series, they were churning out a crazy schedule to begin with, and then post Disney Plus, it's just exploded with more and more projects and heavy effects and post edits done on more and more shows. It's a crazy situation they found themselves in, and I hope the artists and the people doing this amazing work that we all enjoy, they come out with a win. And like I was just starting high school back in 2007, 2008 when the writer's strike happened, and maybe it's time for the VFX artist strike to force some changes, but like, you know, okay, I digress. Let's get back to this review. So they meet the freedom fighters who are rebelling against he who shall not be named. Like, you know, I've been playing so much Hogwarts Legacies, and everyone was kind of hush about like who they're afraid of at the start. They won't really like say his name, so it gave me these weird Harry Potter vibes. So everyone is talking. They're against Kang. Everyone, you know, he's returning from his stint on Loki. It's Jonathan Majors, and now he's Kang the Conqueror, the new Phase 5 villain. And this is the new start for the big bad. And we didn't see this with Thanos. Like, we didn't see him until the first Avengers movie. Like, you just saw like a corner of his face in that post-credit scene. And, you know, it wouldn't be until Infinity Wars that we actually saw someone face off against him. But, you know, this time around, Ant-Man goes toe-to-toe with like this version of Kang and wins, or does he? I'll get back to that. So the freedom fighters, they meet all these new characters. There's Gentora, played by Katie O'Brien, who has this disintegration staff, and she's just a total bamf, just like kicking butt and saving people. And of course there was Veb, who's his bodily fluids, I'm not really sure. But it's a universal translating substance. That's what's hilarious about it. It allows Scott and Cassie to understand what everyone is saying, and I suspect it makes some sort of, like, it sounds like everyone is speaking your native language. Like if Scott was French, everyone like, because everyone's English, that's what you heard. So like, because it kind of sounded like they were speaking a bunch of different languages before they drank the Veb goo, which was hilarious. And there's so that was amazing, and I like that trope. And then like you even see Group B with like Hank, Janet, and Hope. They take a shot when they get to their bar. I'll get to that in a minute, but like they drink the same substance and they have this same. I really enjoyed it. Like this, so like everyone's chanting and it's all like, you know, different language. They can't understand it, and then you take the shot and it's like this moment of like clicking and like a phase in and out, and then all of a sudden you can understand the background. It was really well done. The sound engineering was really good. So then there was Gows, I'm not sure how to pronounce his character's name, but played by William Jackson Harper, amazing actor from The Good Place and Midsommar. He has some of the best quips with his mind reading ability, and like, stop thinking that you're still thinking that. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. I can read your mind. He was really great. I really enjoyed his quips. And so what else happened? So the movie's about 2 hours. So, we find out that Kang, this version of Kang, was banished to the quantum realm. And this is where he met Janet while she was also stranded. And she inadvertently helps him rebuild this engine core for his like time warping interdimensional ship. But when it's finally on, she finds out that it's this neural interlock brain interface thing. I'm not sure exactly how they described it in their science magic mumbo jumbo. But the ship is part of his brain, and by touching it, she's able to see all the terrible stuff that Kang has done. And so instead of helping him, she nabs the engine and smashes it together with a bunch of those like Pym particle growing doohickeys, and it explodes into this quantum mess. And we'll return to that soon. So and this is also what I was talking about, like this field trip. There's so much going on in this movie. It's setting up so much and introducing all of these little pieces of the puzzle. And I mean, no wonder we couldn't keep up with Michael Pena and Randall Park as Agent Jimmy. You know, all of that stuff that's just happened between Janet and Kang. I mean, it happens in one flashback, and it sets up so many different things. And okay, while Scott and Cassie are getting to know the freedom fighters, Janet, Hope, and Hank, they're having their part, and that's where we get this flashback. So we'll jump onto their part of the story now. So she leads them, having also spent 30 years down here, a point which will get mentioned at least a dozen times. So you don't forget that Janet spent 30 years down here. They're just going to keep reiterating it. And though they mentioned that time runs differently down in the quantum realm, like she spent 30 years here, which I believe is a reference to how long she was absent from Hope's life, but it was also 30 years in. It's very unclear. It's never mentioned how long it's been since. It's also never been mentioned how long it's been since she returned, since she was rescued from the quantum realm. But I understand that a lot of time has happened since she's escaped, but not that much time has passed in the real world. This is it's getting a bit muddled. Let's just be honest. So now Janet takes the group to an old hidden bar to meet a contact, and this is where we get the great cameo from Bill Murray as Kylar, who promptly double crosses them to the shock of only Janet, because it was pretty damn obvious that was what was going to happen. But Bill Murray is always a pleasure to see on screen, and he was a funny character. I really enjoy these type of cameos. That character was going to be thrown away or get killed off, and getting Bill Murray added a lot of fun to the scene and made it just a bit more memorable for sure. The action picks up from this point on both plots. Kylar betrays the group, and Kang's faceless robots, I think they're robots, they look like robots, but I don't know, their faceless blue face army shows up and takes them at the same time that Scott and Cassie and the Freedom Fighters are ambushed by the same faceless blue army. And at this point, no one in the group except for Janet knows what the damn hell is going on. So this is after they escape from that bar. This is when we get the flashback about Janet and Kang, and she explains like why she had to become basically like a freedom fighter / terrorist, and she had worked with Kylar, and it's been a lot of things happen and things change, and now he's flipped and he works for Kang, and does all of this stuff. And so this is when we get that flashback, and so close, and like I said, yada yada yada. So Janet and Hank and Hope manage to escape the secret buyer on Kylar's ship, which runs by like shoving everything's like alive, right? So like they have like technology, but it uses like living organisms. It's and to fly the ship, Hank, you have to like shove your arms into these like worm mouths, and it was gross. It just looked wrong. They're like gooey, like think of like a giant gummy worm of goo, and you gotta shove your arm in it, and that's how you fly. So cut back so they escape. They manage to get away in the ship. Cut back to the attack on the Freedom Fighters, and things are not going nearly as well. The robot, I still have a question mark on that. We'll call them robots. They come in like what they're like. I mean, they're still made out of something. They like, I guess it's like they have technology down there in the quantum realm. It's its own universe. It's super vague. They come in stronger with more ships and seriously messing things. Ooh, wow, I'm a little tongue tied there. Seriously messing things up. But with the help of Ant-Man and Cassie, who does have her own suit, she shows it off. It's purple. I wonder if she'll be the Dragonfly or the Ladybug or something. I'm not familiar with her character in the comic books. I have to look that one up. They managed to defeat some of the robot dudes. There's some pretty cool character arc and exploration of Cassie's character. She's clearly very smart and very tenacious, and she wants to help, but she hasn't trained very much, for real combat situations, for what it takes to be an Avenger or a young Avenger. We're probably going to get Young Avengers soon, hopefully. So like she doesn't know how to do the jump and tap, and Scott has to kind of explain it, and he's trying to like teach her how to fight in the fray of it and everything. And so with their help, it looks like they've pushed back these robot dudes, and then there's some ominous glow. This purple glow comes in and stuff starts to explode, and we get MODOK, who I'm excited, but I'll be honest, I wasn't familiar with him until the Patton Oswalt series, and I've picked up a few of the Twisted Head Canon. I can't remember the name of them. I've picked up a few of them. I'm trying to get my hands on the omnibus so that I can do my due diligence and read more up on MODOK. But it was really good, and I enjoyed the Robot Chicken style of the Patton Oswalt series. That was the MODOK Hulu series, if you're not familiar with it, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. So spoiler alert on this one. Like I said, it was great seeing the MODOK on the big screen, but spoiler alert, I loved the twist on MODOK, on him being Darren, Corey Stoll from Ant-Man 1, the bad guy from Ant-Man 1. If you recall, at the end, he's like destroyed and shrinks down and then gets lost into the quantum realm. And so having him come back and being MODOK, but only in the post and VFX. On set, it was actually Mark Weinman. He did the physical acting, I guess, for the motion capture and stuff, but absolutely amazing. I love bringing back this character The way he was shrunk in the first movie, like I said, it really fits this. And there's this villain like montage, like Darth Vader Humpty Dumpty scene, and it was amazing. And then there's this weird little MODOK butt scene. The second butt of the MCU is MODOK's, and it's just hilarious. It was super weird seeing that giant face each time, but it was really like you have to see it to understand it. It was really well done, and it was hilarious too. I mean, like, but look at me, I am a dick. Like, there was a good character arc again. Like I'm saying, like there was some really good development, and it was well written. I don't care what the critics say. I enjoyed it. I thought it was well written. I thought his part was really well done, and I loved MODOK, and I hope that we get more. And while I hope to see him, unfortunately, again, spoiler, one of the stars they lose for me, but I give the movie 3 out of 5 stars. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. One of the stars they lost is unnecessarily killing MODOK, wasting another really great character in such a small part, which is an offense that the MCU has committed often and tried to fix later on. There's already an outpouring of people demanding that Darren's MODOK return and not be dead, because he was the underdog hero that no one expected and everyone loved. So hopefully we will get more of this version of the modified organism designed only for killing. Though originally it was conquering. The K was a C, but I guess with Kang the Conqueror, they didn't. They wanted to go for the design using the killing model instead of the conquering model. So they went with that one. So okay, but backtracking, because MODOK shows up to capture Scott and Cassie, because he's the perfect killing whatever, right? So he reintroduces himself to Scott, and Cassie is all like, oh my god, it's the bee guy, because she still has some unresolved issues with being attacked in the first Ant-Man movie, which is understandable. Now we're like halfway through the movie, and finally Scott and Cassie, they meet Kang, who, even though Janet destroyed the rebuilt core when they powered up his ship, so when she saw all of his evil memories, right, it was long enough for him to put on his power suit, and that gave him enough of his powers back to reshape the quantum realm. So that's what everybody's like fighting against. That's why there's freedom fighters, because Kang has come in and he's conquering now this new realm that he finds himself trapped in, and he has turned the quantum realm into his own utilitarian empire, with the sole purpose of escaping from this timeless quantum realm. And this is one of the bigger implications of the MCU. Kang, who was been cast out of time to be stranded in this realm because it is outside of time, right? That's the catch here. So though this version of Kang, if we look at the versions, right, there's this version of Kang, and there's the version of Kang we see in Loki, and his name was He Who Remains. And if we jump around here a bit, but if we look at who we see at the end of the movie, so I'm talking about the post-credit scene, we see a stadium full of Kangs being led by a group of 3 Kangs. Now the Kang, the exiled one, when he meets Scott, he says that he's seen the ending and he's coming. And now I interpreted this as he knows how Earth will end. He knew Scott, and he even alluded to Thor. He asked, like, are you the one with the hammer? Because he's destroyed different timelines of Earth, and he knows that the ending of Earth will be at the hand of other Kangs that have, like, come before or after him on these different timelines. And as for He Who Remains, I'm pretty sure that that's the final Kang. So the one in the Loki series, like after every Kang in that stadium, after Exile Kang dies, He Who Remains is the final Kang. So I'm saying Kang so many times. So I'm curious who will face off against whom and how the Loki plot will tie back into this, because the end credit scene was a teaser for season 2 of Loki. But I'm way ahead of myself. So Kang threatens Cassie's life unless Scott helps him, and of course Scott agrees to help him because nobody wants to see their daughter get hurt. And as it turns out, he needs him to dive and shrink down into that exploded ship core that has created a possibility storm. And this part was trippy as fuck and had some really good VFX of like 1,000 Ant-Men, and like they were all the possible versions of Scott, right? Every time he, like, if he turned left, then another version of him popped up that turned right, and so on and so forth. And there was all these different possible versions of Scott. There was one that was still working at Baskin Robbins, so he's just like wearing the stupid like yellow pink apron and that outfit. It was really well done. So they succeed in shrinking it back down, but of course Kang was lying, and he leaves everyone for dead in the same spot that Janet left him to die in when she exploded the core. That's why they were in that same spot. Very poetic of him. Taking Janet back to his base for reasons. I guess he wanted revenge, which sure, she left him to die and he's crazy. I understand that. So Casey manages to escape at this point. She escapes from the robots. She shrinks down. She's still trying to learn how to fight. She's trying to get the timing perfectly. She doesn't get the timing perfectly on every punch and jump, but she does manage to use her suit to her advantage, and she frees Gentora, and they go around freeing the rest of the freedom fighters, and they mount an attack from the inside. And this is where the big battle scene starts, and it's a really good battle. It's all in this quantum realm in Kang's like empire, which like has like it spans like up and it's curved because it's it doesn't have the same gravity laws, and there's these big like smokish like interstellar micro portals going on everywhere. The backgrounds are very nice, and so everybody gets in on this fight. MODOK Darren goes after Cassie until she kicks his tiny baby butt and makes him admit that he's a dick and that he wants to do better, which was just great character development. And his weird face and his tiny baby body made it really hard not to laugh and pity Darren. And then he sacrifices himself to take out Kang, so like he's good in my book. Like, bring back Darren. I want to see more of this. The best twist is the help from the ants. When everybody got sucked into the quantum realm, and there was this ant colony that had already had their intelligence enhanced slightly, and they were using them to like help build some like small electronics and stuff, I guess for the Hubble quantum telescope, and they got sucked in, and according to them and what Hank explained, they experienced over 1,000 years in the quantum realm, which again, okay, like, so you guys are experiencing like a handful of seconds, but the ants are experiencing 1,000 years. I guess this has something to do with the fact that the ants were even smaller when they got sucked in, but who knows at this point. They don't even need the suits to survive. Hank and Janet are just walking around with no suits the entire time. Scott and everyone's like taking their helmets off and just walking around. So so whatever. The ants have had over 1,000 years in the quantum realm, and they've advanced their tech even more than Kang's, and they come back in the final act to push the odds and help the freedom fighters win against Kang. Woohoo! It was a really good montage. The ants are just like this giant tidal wave of ants just like destroying everything. And the movie's called Ant-Man. I mean, it shouldn't be that surprising that ants end up winning the war. So Kang manages to fight free of the ants, and Scott puts the large they have a pretty good fight. It's where you get the scene from the trailer. You're like, I don't have to win, we both just have to lose. And like it was pretty well done. It's a sacrifice. He's thinking that he's gonna like close the portal and stay behind in the quantum realm, and even if Kang kills him, well, he kept him from escaping, and that's the most he could do. So while they're fighting, Janet had used the enlarging shrinky doohickey things, the ones that make it big, right? She had crashed that into the core and it made it explode. They used the shrinking one to make it small again so that he could power his bigger ship and try to leave. Now when Scott takes the rebuilt core, he takes both the big and small PIM particles, that's what they're called, and he slams it into that, and it reacts differently. I think it implodes instead of exploding, and it starts sending out these shock waves, and it grabs Kang and it pulls him in. And I guess it's some sort of like, it's an inter-time dimensional spanning thing, so it like folded him into this wave, whatever. I'm just pulling words out of a hat at this point. So that's what I interpreted it happening, and it implodes, and bam, the end. That's the end of it. I mean, sort of. The movie wraps, so they managed to open the portal one more time and save Scott and Hope. She came in at the last second to, save Scott and help him fight Kang. And they managed to get them home. And the movie wraps as it opens, Scott walking around town narrating about his life and his achievements. And at one point he realizes that Kang said that the world would end unless he got out. He's like, oh, what if I made a mistake? What if the whole world ends? And now everything should work out for the best. And then like the beat picks up and he just keeps walking, and it was very funny. And then we get the post-credit scene that I mentioned of the stadium full of Kangs, run by like these like leader of this like tribe of these three crazy looking, super old augmented. They have like different body parts that are like metal, and they've definitely from different timelines of Kang, and they've summoned like hundreds of other Kangs to this like stadium, like I said before, stadium of Kangs, and that they're saying that like they're starting to touch the multiverse, and we need to step out because they've killed the exiled one, which is just very interesting. And like, wow, what a movie. Like I said, so many great characters, really good quips. A Marvel movie needs good quips. As a quippy person myself in real life, I enjoy this type of comedy a lot, and the MCU has basically perfected this type of comedy, and I don't care if the internet doesn't like the quips. Marvel comic characters make quips, just accept it already. And after all that, I think it's like I said before, we've met two versions of Kang. Clearly there are thousands of versions. We've met the exiled Kang and He Who Remains Kang in Loki season 1, and I'm super excited to see which version we see next. And one thing that we've learned from Ant-Man is these various versions of him can be killed. So I'm curious how the rules apply. I assume the Kangs can only assemble in this like void quantum realm type area and can't all exist in one timeline. So individually, they would need to come up with a plot that would take a handful of movies and Disney Plus series to carefully put together. So I, for one, am super excited for Phase 5 of the MCU, and this is a really good starting point. There's so much to explore and so many possible outcomes to debate and discuss and entertain ourselves with while we wait for all the amazing movies and series being released over the next couple years. I am excited for Guardians 3, but I am also excited to see some new heroes and intro movies and start coming out. And Phase 5 is going to start introducing the next generation of heroes, and I cannot wait to start seeing more of that. It's been 14 years since Iron Man came out, and it's about time to start seeing new heroes and have their story told. And we've already seen some great ones on Disney Plus with Miss Marvel and the amazing Iman Vellani. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing that name properly, but she was amazing, and we'll get to see even more of her in the Marvels later this year. And as a comic book fan, and originally I was a Spider-Man fan, that's what attracted me to superheroes really. The animated Spider-Man from 1994 was still really popular by the late 90s, and it was playing on Teletoon a lot, and I would rent the VHS tapes of that super iconic Venom saga. And as a kid and a Spider-Man fan, it's one of the franchises that just constantly had some really good content. The animated series, the recent video games. I was still in high school when Andrew Garfield came around, and I really enjoyed his superhero movies, his Spider-Man movies. The rumors of us getting more Sony Spider-Man movies is really cool. I would love to see the rest of that Rhino fight between him and Paul Giamatti that we never got to see. I honestly feel spoiled sometimes. I enjoy so many series and movies. They got so many seasons or sequels, and some of my favorite series went 15 years or longer and stuck with me from like elementary school through the end of high school, and I watched every episode. It chronicles my life in sagas, seasons, episodes, and phases, and it's all been fantastic. And I've been blessed with, the ability to enjoy so much different forms of entertainment my entire life, and to gush about it, and to be able to put together this podcast and share it with, like-minded people, I think is one of the most fun things that I do, and I'm really enjoying that hobby and passion right now. So that is my review of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Ant-Man 3, the beginning of Phase 5 of Marvel. I enjoyed it. I gave it a 3 out of 5. Like I said, it had a lot of interesting concepts and a lot of interesting new plot points being introduced, and some new characters, and hopefully we'll get to see more of MODOK and Veb and all of these interesting characters in whatever comes next. I'm not sure if we're going to get an Ant-Man 4 or however that will work. I know this is the Kang Dynasty, and we're in a new era of Marvel, so I'm super excited for that. And I hope you liked today's episode. This is where we're going to wrap up episode 3. I have big plans for episode 4 and season 2 of the Nerd Review. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you come back for the next episode. This has been episode 3, and this is the Nerd signing off.